And I didn't really know how to. Because on the one hand, I feel like you say stuff like that all the time, and I give you the benefit of. Well, there's not really a doubt to give you the benefit of, but I'm just like, I don't know. There's people who I'm not evaluating.
Right. And in a dating situation, you're assessing people. Is that what you mean?
So I think I'm a little more like, what does that mean? Whereas the people that I'm not like trying to gauge my interaction with, I don't know.
In my defense, I also said that like 3 weeks ago.
I don't think you need to.
No, but I do think about that. How I was like, what? I was so out of the loop and so clueless. But now he should kind of be cut out. It's weird how like I don't know how seriously to take people's words.
Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know if they're just saying stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a good.
Yeah.
Like even if they are just saying stuff, then it's someone who just says stuff.
Right. I did a realization that this is not a conversation
to have. Okay. Okay, we will.
In other news, I have solved the waxing problem, clearly.
Yeah.
And it is wonderful.
Really?
The end.
Say more.
I have frequented waxing establishments, like many people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never occurred to me to do this stuff by myself. And I like ordered a thing to like a full on.
Yeah, what is it? How big is it?
It's like this big.
Okay, and you put like solid wax in, I'm guessing, and then it melts. Yeah, okay, and then you take the sticks.
Yeah. And
is it just this like? There's no paper? What are you?
There's no paper because this is hard wax. There are a couple of different kinds, I guess, right?
Okay.
And hard wax itself hardens.
Yeah.
I get that's obviously why they called it that. And you have to like let it dry for longer than you would leave the other kind of wax on.
Yeah.
And instead of putting a paper or a cloth or something on it, you just pull the wax itself. Because it like becomes a thing, like it becomes solid almost.
Does it? Yeah. Okay. And it like applies pretty easy. Like I can't believe you just did it.
Yeah, it does.
And you didn't burn yourself.
No, there were a couple of times where I was like, "That is too hot."
Okay.
But
right. Cool. Well,
yeah,
at a home waxing studio.
Where should I try it first? That's like innocuous and not going to be a big deal.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, my toes. Anyway, but very quickly I was like, oh, this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And as I was trying to say to my sister earlier, I think it's actually better with. I was afraid that I would be too like much of a wuss to be able to like do it decisively, which you have to do it decisively. You can't be like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could like do that myself. But as it turns out, it's I think way better than somebody else doing it, because I realized a lot of my pain and discomfort and all kinds of the stuff that goes in, that's part of the waxing experience for me, is the anxiety of not really knowing when
it's gonna strike.
When it's gonna strike. So you're just like in a state always of like, I mean, I like obviously try to breathe and.
Oh yeah. That's why I texted you and I was like, it's really awkward having someone else wax you.
I didn't know what the alternative was.
It's just that you're so vulnerable. You are so vulnerable, and then at the same time, at least this is what I do. I feel weird about like someone like having to deal with my unkemptness, let's call it. Like, you do this. You make me pretty. I'm not going to deal with my body hair. I don't know.
But that sounds like you might think badly of
body hair. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so
and
there's
definitely some of that too. So like there's that element, and then I'm kind of like trying to overcompensate, trying to make it like just a cheerful interaction or something. And at the same time I'm like terrified and like clinging to the bed. But pretending not to be.
Cool.
And then like crying.
I literally like play games on my phone and I'm like, this is not about you, but I have to do this.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Although the lady has started to chat me up about all manner of things in her life, and she's quite entertaining and not entertaining, but like engaging.
Yeah.
So we now just like, just engaged in a like very engaging conversation with her. And so it goes by and I don't, but I have my phone in case I need to just like for whatever. Like I used to, I'd be like, I'm sorry, this is not about you. I'm just freaked out.
When I used to get waxed, there was this place called the 10 Spot in Toronto. And they had televisions everywhere. It's like, what is up with the places I go to? My dentist's office has that too. And they would always be like, I think, do we get to choose the thing at the 10 Spot? Maybe not. But it would always be like some stupid chick flick movie. It'd be like Clueless was on, so I could just...
Clueless is a great movie.
It is. I didn't say it wasn't. A stupid chick flick. Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, there would be, meaning like something very girly would be playing. Is that too offensive? Something very sophisticated would be playing. And I could kind of like zone into that. And just really focus on Paul Rudd's face. Yeah.
That's my happy place.
Yeah.
Focusing on Paul Rudd's face. Whenever we're doing something,
do it. And I realized Paul Rudd does
is magic.
It's kind of, yes. He's successful for a reason.
Yeah. He didn't just happen into this.
He's perfected the art of being himself.
Yeah. I was like, I think that's the weirdest thing I've ever said to anyone.
Like Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Just like do an impression of Paul Rudd.
I don't know if it's doable.
It's pretty thrilling.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think like the fact that you can do it at home.
And you're not like, you don't have to rush yourself. So if you're like,
right. Like if you need to take a half hour to breathe before you do the next stretch, do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like being like, okay, it's fine if I'm not ready. It's fine if I'm not ready. And then I actually do it when I am ready. So I'm never caught off guard by it. I don't know. I was like, this is actually way better than somebody else doing it. Because there's just, like, I realized I have a huge amount of anxiety around, like, when do I need to be bracing? Like, what am I ready, basically? It's a variety of anxiety thoughts that basically center around, am I ready for this?
Yeah. That makes sense. It sounds like you were being traumatized every time you went to the waxing salon.
In retrospect.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if people like who don't go, I don't know if they get it. Like
I think they watch
frankly.
like the 40-year-old virgin and they're like,
yeah. That shit it's real though.
It's real.
Like there's so many things that women do.
Yeah.
And go through that obviously like don't have to. But I don't know if there's an appreciation for it. Appreciation meaning not thank you for doing it. Appreciation meaning like, oh shit, that sounds like a traumatic experience.
Wouldn't it be great if that was the reaction? They were like, you waxed your legs? Like, if people
Should be.
appreciated it as opposed to being like, oh, I don't know, as opposed
somebody
to
should
just
be like-
expecting it.
Yeah. Somebody should be like, I don't know how you do it. That shit is impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive.
It is.
I think maybe more men are doing it. Are more men doing it now? Or no? Is that still not a thing?
Maybe some more.
I don't know, actually.
Maybe some more.
I'm trying to think about that. I'm like, does James Charles exercise?
Who that?
Who dat?
Legs? No. I don't think so.
No?
I don't think a lot of men wax their legs.
That's what I'm wondering, because I'm like, oh yeah, like guys are wearing makeup now. Are they doing other stuff?
Who's wearing makeup?
Guys. I mean, they have been.
Donald Trump.
But like, this is what I notice. Is like, in many ways, just like everything's becoming more fluid. And like, more guys are wearing makeup. Everything's becoming kind of like optional and not associated with gender. And I guess I was wondering if those guys are waxing.
I don't ever meet men who are wearing makeup. I don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Like people who work at MAC and Sephora.
Yeah.
But they're in a makeup store. Like obviously they are. Or is that not? You're saying
This
it's
is more
not
like
obvious?
stuff I'm seeing on like YouTube and online. Not necessarily people I know.
I can't comment on this, but this is another thing to research.
I just wanted to know if guys are doing it too. Because in that case, I don't know. That's a more interesting thing if it just becomes like this thing that some people, not like women, partake in.
Yeah, I don't think legs probably.
Think like chest,
Yeah, or back.
back,
In case if that's
shoulders.
Yep. Those are all body parts.
If you dated someone who had like shoulder hair,
Mhm.
would you make him wax?
No.
No.
It would be assumed for me that like I'm fine with what's going on.
Okay.
I wouldn't be like, you're repulsive and for me to date you, like I don't think I would find myself in that position because I would, if I wasn't attracted to them, I wouldn't be attracted to them.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely be attracted to someone and also find parts of them like really scary. I'm very easily scared. Like armpit hair scares me.
Really?
But the opposite also scares me. Like, but at the same time, if I met a guy who didn't have armpit hair, I would be like, oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you can't win in that situation.
Really, there's no winning.
Mm-mm. No, none of them. I was like, unless I somehow meet someone who just like magically doesn't grow hair there. But that would scare me too.
You're very easily scared. That is what I'm getting to. Right?
I mean, scared is a strong word. It would probably be more of a reaction of like, it would just be, I would be
Disgust?
perplexed, distressed. Yes, it would distress me.
Wow.
No.
No to armpits?
No to armpits. No to armpit hair. No to armpit hair. Mm-mm. Maybe like an armpit stubble?
Oh!
What?
No.
No?
No.
That might be okay for me. Would be Why?
I'm not kind of stubble, really.
Oh, okay.
Just sensorily, not like I don't have judgment about it. I just don't want to.
It hurts your face.
I don't want to touch it.
Yo, why aren't more women talking about like how we need to be talking about this? No. Like a guy's beard can cut you. And as like beards have become, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I've had that conversation with people.
Yeah. Like I just think it's very inconsiderate of men.
Yeah, but struggles worse almost.
Sometimes, yeah, depending on the level. Yeah.
This is by far the stupidest conversation we've had.
No, I just think like as men have been like, yeah, growing my beard. Like, think of your ladies at home, okay? Or your men at home.
They probably are.
Yeah. What?
I don't think people are like in relationships and are like, oh my God,
no, I was full on talking to a friend about this, and she was like, he won't. What was it? I don't know. He was doing something with his grooming, and it was like hurting her face. I was like, okay, it's not right.
But she said something about it?
Yeah, she would complain about it, and he was just like, ha 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 ha.
That's an interesting reaction. Sounds like a dongle. I hate to say it, but it sounds like a dongle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate to say it.
Like, or it could like the opposite side of it. It could work as an exfoliant.
You never need that much concentrated exfoliant.
It's probably too physical.
Too much physical exfoliant.
Yeah, you know, like,
which is a thing.
It is a thing. You gotta be gentle with that stuff.
Yeah, I have non-stimulus exfoliant.
Chemical.
Yeah.
What do you use?
Be the skin. Oh, be the skin. How do you not know that? It's one of those things I won't shut up about. No, you always think it's the toner. But I love them both equally. But the thing that I'm definitely getting again is the exfoliant.
Interesting.
Have you tried the peach slices thing?
Not yet.
It's not with that. You're waiting to feel dry?
Yeah. No, I'm waiting. Whatever. I'm doing a thing because I had a breakout. I woke up today and I was like, yes, my skin is finally getting back on track.
Literally, I just need to say that nothing changed for the worse. I'm not saying nothing changed for the better. I'm saying at no point was it different.
There were little spots. And whatever. I used this like Centella Purito cream last night. So once, I think I'm going to do that again. And then once it's like really in check, I'll try that.
Why do you think the Centella helped?
Because Centella is soothing and good for acne.
You have a major acne problem.
I know I do.
Ridiculous. Interesting. I'm going to try that.
No, it's good.
I like their eye cream.
What? Purito?
Mm.
Really?
Mm.
Ooh.
Mm.
I like how this evolved into skincare again.
I was going to say.
I haven't tried their eye cream. I use their sunscreen, and it's amazing.
I have their sunscreen, but that's one of the ones I'm not using yet because I'm trying to use up my freaking Neogen. Ugh. Ugh. Okay. I think that's enough of skincare.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's not what the people are here for.
I mean, isn't it though? Isn't it? What are we here for? We're here for War and Peace. And we're here to find out what happens with Pierre and his new friend, God.
And the Masons.
Oh, yeah, them too. I mean, maybe.
I don't feel like we're going to stay with him. I feel like this chapter we're going to go back to.
Well, I looked ahead, so no, we're staying with him.
We are?
Yeah.
Woo!
Ooh. We're excited about that.
Yeah, because I kind of just expected them to like let us marinate in.
Yeah, just be in anticipation, and then we would suddenly see a new Pierre months later. Is that what you thought?
Yeah, and maybe Tulsa would just like never acknowledge it. He'd be like, So because Pierre was a Catholic priest,
That's great.
that's the reason he was in the church that day on Tuesday.
That's how I would do it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that's like, I'm taking notes about how to write a novel, by the way. I'm learning a lot.
Are you?
No. Am I?
No. That was a good moment. Quality moment.
Thanks. I'll remember that.
Mm.
The
Save
highlight
it for-
reel.
Save it for your Paul Rudd. Save it for. Okay.
Imagine, can I become an impressionist with only one impression?
Yeah.
Just Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
I'm going to perfect this. This is what I will be doing during the quarantine.
I like it.
I
I like it.
like it too. Everyone else is writing their screenplay. I'm working on my thing.
Yeah.
You get your
I'm
handstand.
pretty excited to live with Paul Rudd. I don't know. I need to get my handstand.
She's going to get her handstand. I'm going to get my Paul Rudd.
I am scared I'll never get my handstand ever.
It's gonna happen.
Do you think I should pay $50 for a program called 30 Days to Handstand that Instagram keeps trying to sell me?
Is there a money back guarantee?
Probably not.
Maybe
That's a good question.
an investment is something that will.
I don't see how I could possibly have invested more into my handstand.
You got that chair.
That's for many things, and I
That's true.
love it.
Maybe setting a deadline would be good for you.
How? But if I knew how to do it, I would do it. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I don't know if it's like that I haven't felt threatened enough.
That's it.
Well, you'll like set a deadline.
Like, create a time in the future when you have it.
I think part of the problem is that I haven't created the possibility
There you go.
of me being a stable handstander.
Yeah.
Because I kind of can't picture it. That's a
My
problem.
next suggestion was going to be
A
you
worksheet?
could visualize being in a handstand and holding up.
Like right now.
Like there's all these, like right now. Like there's these studies of piano players who would, one test group would practice actually, and then another test group would just visualize practicing, like imagine practicing, and then one
I
group,
know where this is going.
but obviously you know where it's going.
Right.
And then the other group didn't do anything, obviously, and the one who didn't do anything didn't really improve. The people who
That is
practiced
surprising.
improved like quite a bit, but the people who just imagined playing improved almost as much as the people who practiced.
Wow. I feel like I've heard about this study, but like in many different ways, like eating dessert, like chocolate. People who are like, imagining yourself eating chocolate is just as good as eating chocolate. And I'm
Really?
like, yeah.
I kind of buy that. And then you're like, no, I kind of buy this because sometimes when I eat things that I think I want, it's unsatisfying when I actually have it.
Interesting. That to me means that you're out of tune with your second brain.
Oh, okay. I
No problem.
don't know what my second brain is.
Your belly.
Oh. Maybe?
Gut brain. I don't like the word gut. It's so aggressive.
But yeah, maybe you could like, maybe part of your practice, and that's why I was like, make a deadline. Like, what will
That
it
sounds
be
stupid,
like?
but I don't think it is stupid.
What will it be like when you're up there in your handstand?
Okay. I will work on this in my mind's eye. I will handstand. I will use my third eye to set handstand. I'm doing it.
I'm gonna like come into the kitchen and you're just gonna be staring up in his face and you're like, I'm doing my handstand.
I set up like a video a couple of times to see alignment stuff, and I like will try it and watch it later to see if there's any obvious like issue happening. I should make a video of me practicing handstand in my mind in the same way.
Wait, make a video of you Wait, what?
So, you know, I have my handstand videos.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that I should make one of these for when I am imagining practicing my handstand, because it's going to basically be the same thing, just as good.
I love this. You know what? Wait, I think this is what you're suggesting, and I just found out about this today.
What?
Or kind of. So, like, watching yourself do a handstand is going to be like you visualizing it. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, like, sometimes when, no, like if your hips are always behind your shoulders, that becomes obvious when you see it on video.
Right.
Yeah. And when you're upside down, like because you kind of have to your proprioception kind of goes out of whack. So you can no longer contact, like you have to forge a new sort of contact and connection with different parts of your body. So being able to look at it when you're upright and not when you're like trying to find it upside down sometimes is helpful. But yeah, I think I should do that with when I'm imagining it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Like a vision board? It's a movie.
Okay.
And I thought you were going to be like, I'm going to create a handstand vision board movie.
But that's essentially what you're saying. That's essentially what you're saying.
What do you mean? Yeah. And so instead of like having to be imaginative, because like, God forbid, we have to do that work. Let someone else do the work.
Cool.
I don't know. Common, what's it called? Creative Commons. Anyway, yeah, I think that's a good. I like that suggestion. I like moving in that direction.
I like it also.
Yeah, because you're like very ensconced in the idea that you cannot do your handstand.
I really am very, very, very ensconced in it. I've known that for a while too. I've been like, I'm practicing not being able to handstand, basically. Like I have all of the elements, and maybe the only reason I can't do it is because I'm not doing it. Because I'm like, sometimes I think my legs come down almost like by habit.
Because they're just like, right, we can't do this.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, get some hang time, like 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and then it's like, it's over. So I don't even know how much I'm trying to stay up there, which is one of the reasons that I bought those mats, because I was like, I need to do this away from the wall so that so that I'm like actually dealing with being just like free floating, with nothing catch me.
Yeah.
Because maybe I will actually stay.
Right.
If there's no option. Or if the only option is like bailing out painfully. And I've tried bailing out painfully and it sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And again, when you're upside down, maybe not everyone, but I think this is like a physiological thing. You kind of like get lost. You don't know where anything is anymore.
Well, that's actually why, like, maybe practicing when you're right side up in a weird way will be really good, because then you do know where you are.
Right.
And instead of like you relying on like fear to be the thing that keeps you up, like what if it's like practicing being like, I'm strong, I can do this, you know, like positive reinforcement as opposed to you're on your own.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, I'm at this point because I cannot think of that many more physical things
Right.
to be doing. I'm like out of it, out of stuff.
Yeah.
So
she's really strong. I don't know if you could tell, but she definitely has the strength for it.
Yeah. I just don't have the mental strength for it, clearly. Haven't had.
There you go.
Now I do.
So when are you going to have your handstand by?
The end of book 10.
Oh! Okay.
What the fuck book are we on?
Great.
4!
5.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. Okay.
You heard it here.
Okay, it's cool. It's
Book
cool.
10. The end of book 10.
Yeah!
End of book 10.
No big deal!
So yeah, Pierre met a Freemason on the train who talked to him about God and said like
very articulately.
Yeah, said like, what have you been doing? I know all about you.
Like I almost found Jesus last night. Just from reading that.
Was Jesus mentioned? I don't think he was.
It goes without saying. It's like our Lord or something.
Yeah. Anyway, and Pierre was like, "You're right. I haven't been trying to better my environment or the people around me. I'm gonna be a new man." And what was his name? I forget what his name was. This Freemason.
It's probably on the lost page.
Oh wait, it was Joseph Alexeyevich, who told him told him go see this person, right?
Some count in St. Petersburg, I guess.
There you go. So presumably Pierre can go do that.
I wonder how he knew all about him.
Because he's famous.
You think? I mean, I know he's famous, but do you think that's why?
Yeah, I just thought it was like he's well known because he's one of the richest people in Moscow.
Okay.
If not the richest. I don't quite. Yeah.
I think the richest.
There was also a card game.
Oh my gosh. That was a roller coaster.
That was stressful. Dolokhov took 43,000 rubles from Nicholas,
who continues to demonstrate his jackassery at every turn.
He's reliable.
He is very reliable. Yeah, and I think he maybe has gone back to the regiment.
Mm-hmm.
Denisov proposed to freaking Natasha, and she was like, no. And the mother was like, no. And then he ran off with his tail between his legs.
He was so sad.
He was really sad.
Natasha was so sad.
She was sad. She was sobbing for some unknown
I know. Reason. She burst into tears.
They like catch emotions like people start speaking in tongues in churches. You know, it's just like they just like start feeling the spirit. It's
yeah,
like
totally.
You know?
Yeah.
She's just like so with it and with him, and like she gets swept away and starts sobbing.
Them though, the men too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. They're not repressed.
Yeah, it's these pretty shitty Russian boundaries.
That's what it is.
It's bad boundaries. Almost everything is bad boundaries.
So we are on book 5, chapter 3. On reaching Petersburg, Pierre did not let anyone know of his arrival. He went nowhere and spent whole days in reading Thomas à Kempis, whose book had been sent him by someone unknown. Okay.
So he's just flying on the wings of chance in every direction.
You got a Freemason book subscription.
Someone's like, you should do this. He's like, okay. And then someone sends him a book and he's like, I guess I'll read this.
I mean, yeah, that's what he's been doing all along.
He's turning into Nicholas.
No, he's been doing that all along.
He has?
Yeah, he's like,
wait,
that's how we got married.
Both him and Nicholas have been doing it all along.
A lot of them have, yeah.
Okay.
One thing he continually realized as he read that book, the joy hitherto unknown to him of believing in the possibility of attaining perfection, and in the possibility of active brotherly love among men, which Joseph Alexievich had revealed to him. A week after his arrival, the young Polish Count Wilarski, whom Pierre had known slightly in Petersburg society, came into his room one evening in the official and ceremonious manner in which Dólokhov's second had called on him, and having closed the door behind him and satisfied himself that there was nobody else in the room, addressed Pierre.
I have come to you with a message and an offer, Count, he said without sitting down. A person of very high standing in our brotherhood has made application for you to be received into our order before the usual term and has proposed to me to be your sponsor. I consider it a sacred duty to fulfill that person's wishes. Do you wish to enter the Brotherhood of Freemasons under my sponsorship?
The cold, austere tone of this man, whom he had almost always before met at balls, amiably smiling in the society of the most brilliant women, surprised Pierre.
Yes, I do wish it, he said.
Wilarski bowed his head.
One more question, Count, he said, which I beg you to answer in all sincerity, not as a future Mason, but as an honest man. Have you renounced your former convictions? This is what I meant by Jesus. Do you believe in God?
Pierre considered.
Yes. Yes, I believe in God, he said.
In that case, began Wilarski, but Pierre interrupted him.
Yes, I do believe in God, he repeated.
Okay, thanks. What? In that case, believes. In that case,
I definitely
in that case,
believe in God.
Said Wilarski, my carriage is at your service.
Wilarski was silent throughout the drive. To Pierre's inquiries as to what he must do and how he should answer, Wilarski only replied that brothers more worthy than he would test him, and that Pierre had only to tell the truth.
Having entered the courtyard of a large house where the lodge had its headquarters, and having ascended a dark staircase, they entered a small, well-lit anteroom where they took off their cloaks without the aid of a servant. From there, they passed into another room. A man in strange attire appeared at the door. They're gonna go to like somewhere.
Eyes wide shut.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
And he was like, "Wait, I came from orgies." Because wasn't that one of the things that guy was like, "You've been debaucherous."
Right, I don't think it was orgies, but lots of debauchery.
For sure, the word orgy was in there.
Was it?
Yeah. Because I remember being like, Pierre, was that an orgy? Okay.
Wilarski, stepping toward him, said something to him in French in an undertone, and then went up to a small wardrobe in which Pierre noticed garments such as he had never seen before. Having taken a kerchief from the cupboard, Wilarski bound Pierre's eyes with it and tied it in a knot behind, catching some hairs painfully in the knot. Then he drew his face down, kissed him, and taking him by the hand, led him forward. The hairs tied in the knot hurt Pierre, and there were lines of pain on his face and a shamefaced smile. His huge figure, with arms hanging down and with a puckered, though smiling face, moved after Wilarski with uncertain, timid steps.
Having led him about 10 paces, Wilarski stopped.
Whatever happens to you, he said, you must bear it all manfully if you have firmly resolved to join our brotherhood. Pierre nodded affirmatively. When you hear a knock at the door, you will uncover your eyes, added Wilarski. I wish you courage and success. And pressing Pierre's hand, he went out.
Left alone, Pierre went on smiling in the same way. Once or twice he shrugged his shoulders and raised his hand to the kerchief as if to take it off, as if wishing to take it off, but let it drop again. The 5 minutes spent with his eyes bandaged seemed to him an hour. His arms felt numb, his legs almost gave way. It seemed to him that he was tired out. He experienced a variety of most complex sensations. He felt afraid of what would happen to him, and still more afraid of showing his fear. He felt curious to know what was going to happen and what would be revealed to him, but most of all, he felt joyful that the moment had come when he would at last start on that path of regeneration and on the actively virtuous life of which he had been dreaming since he met Joseph Alexievich. Loud knocks were heard at the door. Pierre took the bandage off his eyes and glanced around him. The room was in black darkness. Only a small lamp was burning inside something white. Pierre went nearer and saw that the lamp stood on a black table on which lay an open book. The book was the Gospel, and the white thing, with the lamp inside, was a human skull with its cavities and teeth. After reading the first words of the Gospel, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God," Pierre went round the table and saw a large open box filled with something. It was a coffin with bones inside. He was not at all surprised by what he saw. Hoping to enter on an entirely new life quite unlike the old one, he expected everything to be unusual, even more unusual than what he was seeing. A skull, a coffin, the gospel, it seemed to him that he had expected all this and even more. Trying to stimulate his emotions, why, he looked around. God, death, love, the brotherhood of man, he kept saying to himself, associating these words with vague yet joyful ideas. The door opened and someone came in.
By the dim light to which Pierre had already become accustomed, he saw rather a short man. Having evidently come from the light into the darkness, the man paused, then moved with cautious steps toward the table, and placed on it his small leather-gloved hands.
This short man had on a white leather apron which covered his chest and part of his legs. He had on a kind of necklace above which rose a high white ruffle outlining his rather long face, which was lit up from below.
"For what have you come hither?" asked the newcomer, turning in Pierre's direction at a slight rustle made by the latter. "Why have you, who do not believe in the truth of the light, and who have not seen the light, come here?"
At the moment the door opened and the stranger came in, Pierre felt a sense of awe and veneration, such as he had experienced in his boyhood at confession. He felt himself in the presence of one socially a complete stranger, yet nearer to him through the brotherhood of man. With bated breath and beating heart, he moved towards the Rita,
Yeah.
by which name the brother who prepared a seeker for entrance into the brotherhood was known. Drawing nearer, he recognized in the reader a man he knew, Smolyanov, and it mortified him to think that the newcomer was an acquaintance. He wished him simply a brother and a virtuous instructor. For a long time he could not utter a word, so that the reader had to repeat his question.
"Yes, I desire regeneration," Pierre uttered with difficulty.
"Very well," said Smolyanov, and went on at once. "Have you any idea of the means by which our holy order will help you to reach your aim?" said he, quietly and quickly.
"I hope for guidance, help in regeneration," said Pierre with a trembling voice and some difficulty in utterance due to his excitement and to being unaccustomed to speak of abstract matters in Russian.
What is your conception of Freemasonry?
"I imagine that Freemasonry is the fraternity and equality of men who have virtuous aims," said Pierre, feeling ashamed of the inadequacy of his words for the solemnity of the moment as he spoke. "I imagine—"
"Good," said the reader quickly, apparently satisfied with this answer. "Have you sought for means of attaining your aim in religion?"
"No, I considered it erroneous and did not follow it," said Pierre, so softly that the reader did not hear him, and asked him what he was saying. "I have been an atheist," answered Pierre.
"You are seeking for truth in order to follow its laws in your life. Therefore you seek wisdom and virtue. Is that not so?" said the reader after a moment's pause.
Yes, assented Pierre.
The reader cleared his throat, crossed his gloved hand on his breast, and began to speak.
"Now I must disclose to you the chief aim of our order," he said. "And if this aim coincides with yours, you may enter our brotherhood with profit. The first and chief object of our order, the foundation on which it rests and which no human power can destroy, is the preservation and handing on to posterity of a certain important mystery, which has come down to us from the remotest ages, even from the first man, a mystery on which perhaps the fate of mankind depends.
It's TM.
Oh my God, I was thinking just Are we finally going to learn what happens? But since this mystery is of such a nature that nobody can know or use it unless he be prepared by long and diligent self-purification, not everyone can hope to attain it quickly. Hence, we have a secondary aim, that of preparing our members as much as possible to reform their hearts, to purify and enlighten their minds, by means handed on to us by tradition from those who have striven to attain this mystery, and thereby to render them capable of receiving it.
By purifying and regenerating our members, we try, thirdly, to improve the whole human race, offering it in our members an example of piety and virtue, and thereby try with all our might to combat the evil which sways the world. Think this over, and I will come to you again.
To combat the evil which sways the world, Pierre repeated, and a mental image of his future activity in this direction rose in his mind. He imagined men such as he had himself been a fortnight ago, and he addressed an edifying exhortation to them. He imagined to himself vicious and unfortunate people whom he would assist by word and deed, imagined oppressors whose victims he would rescue. Of the three objects mentioned by the Rhetor, this last, that of improving mankind, especially appealed to Pierre. The important mystery mentioned by the Rhetor, though it aroused his curiosity, did not seem to him essential, and the second aim, that of purifying and regenerating himself, did not much interest him because at that moment he felt with delight that he was already perfectly cured of his former faults and was ready for all that was good.
Half an hour later, the reader returned to inform the seeker of the 7 virtues, 7, corresponding to the 7 steps of Solomon's temple, which every Freemason should cultivate in himself. These virtues were: 1. The keeping of the order. 2. Obedience of those of higher rank. Obedience to Jesus. Those of higher ranks in the order. 3. Morality. 4. Love of mankind. 5. Courage. 6. Generosity. 7. The love of death.
Ooh, that's why there was like a skull ring.
Yeah, man. They're goth.
That seems like a weird order. That's just me.
I was thinking about that too.
Discretion is first, and
The first rule of Fight Club.
then the second is obedience. Yes, yeah, first rule of Fight Club. First rule of Tan.
Don't
Don't
talk about it. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone your mantra. That's
Sorry. Yes, that.
but which is kind of it. Your mantra turn. In the seventh
So
place,
say we all.
in the seventh place, try by the frequent thought of death, the reader said, to bring yourself to regard it not as a dreaded foe, but as a friend that frees the soul grown weary in the labors of virtue from this distressful life, and leads it to its place of recompense and peace.
Yes, that must be so, thought Pierre, when after these words the reader went away, leaving him to solitary meditation. It must be so, but I am still so weak that I love my life, the meaning of which is only now gradually opening before me. But 5 of the other virtues, which Pierre recalled, counting them on his fingers, he felt already in his soul: courage, generosity, morality, love of mankind, and especially obedience, which did not even seem to him a virtue but a joy. He now felt so glad to be free from his own lawlessness and to submit his will to those who knew the indubitable truth. He forgot what the 7th virtue was and could not recall it.
Need to be even. The third, what was, he forgot the 7th virtue. He forgot it?
He just said he sucked at it and then forgot it.
Just happened, Pierre. Love of death.
He's like, obedience.
He's like, I'm already good at all these things.
I love obedience. I'm already good at all of these things.
The third time, the reader came back more quickly and asked Pierre whether he was still firm in his intention and determined to submit to all that would be required of him.
I am ready for everything, said
Just forgot
Pierre.
it.
He's like, except that seventh one.
Okay. I must also inform you, said the reader, that our order delivers its teaching not in words only, but also by other means, which may perhaps have a stronger effect on the sincere seeker after wisdom and virtue than mere words. This chamber, with what you see therein, should already have suggested to your heart, if it is sincere, more than words could do. You will perhaps also see in your further initiation a like method of enlightenment. Our order imitates the ancient societies that explain their teaching by hieroglyphics. A hieroglyph, said the reader, is an emblem of something not cognizable by the senses, but which possesses qualities resembling those of the symbol.
Pierre knew very well what a hieroglyph was, but dared not speak. He listened to the reader in silence, feeling from all he said that his ordeal was about to begin.
If you are resolved, I must begin your initiation, said the reader, coming closer to Pierre. In token of generosity, I ask you to give me all your valuables.
But I have nothing here, replied Pierre, supposing that he was asked to give up all that he possessed.
What you have with you, watch, money, rings.
Pierre quickly took out his purse and watch, but could not manage for some time to get the wedding ring off his fat finger. When that had been... See, people with their gross hands. When that had been done, the reader said,
In token of obedience, I ask you to undress.
Pierre took off his coat, waistcoat, and left boot according to the reader's instructions. The mason drew the shirt back from Pierre's left breast and, stooping down, pulled up the left leg of his trousers to above the knee. Pierre hurriedly began taking off his right boot also and was going to tuck up the other trouser leg to save this stranger the trouble, but the mason told him that that was not necessary and gave him a slipper for his left foot. With a childlike smile of embarrassment, doubt, and self-derision which appeared on his face against his will, Pierre stood with his arms hanging down and legs apart before his brother Rita and awaited further command.
Passion, said the latter.
My passion? I have so many. I've had so many, replied Pierre.
That passion which more than all others caused you to waver on the path of virtue, said the mason.
Pierre paused, seeking a reply.
Wine, gluttony, idleness, laziness, irritability, anger, women? He went over his vices in his mind, not knowing to which of them to give the preeminence.
Women, he said in a low, scarcely audible voice.
The mason.
Sounds weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's advice.
It's because of all the orgies.
Right, I guess so. The mason did not move and for a long time said nothing after this answer. At last he moved up to Pierre and, taking the kerchief that lay on the table, again bound his eyes.
For the last time I say to you, turn all your attention upon yourself, put a bridle on your senses, and seek blessedness, not in passion, but in your own heart. The source of blessedness is not without us, but within.
Pierre had already long been feeling in himself that refreshing source of blessedness, which now flooded his heart with glad emotion.
It's within you. I think that's that guy's main
He
point.
lives in you. Yeah.
You know that guy whose videos we watched on YouTube?
Yes, I do.
That's his whole thing.
Listen to the song.
It's not out there.
Are you a Freemason?
Me?
How are you privy to such information?
Whew.
Is that the secret?
Yeah.
It's all just inside of you.
This is the secret. It is everyone's secret. And they say that in the Bible too, by the way.
Do they?
The kingdom of God is within you.
Yeah.
People across the board are pretty into that idea.
Mm.
I don't know about across the board, but
Mm.
yeah, people are into that idea.
In you. But I think people get confused about what the heck that means.
Sure.
Like, what is in you?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Chapter 4. Soon after this, there came into the dark chamber to fetch Pierre, not the reader, but Pierre's sponsor, Wolarski, whom he recognized by his voice. To fresh questions as to the firmness of his resolutions, Pierre replied, "Yes, yes, I agree." And with a beaming, childlike smile, his fat chest uncovered, stepping unevenly and timidly in one slippered and one booted foot, he... Why? Why?
No idea.
That dressing part, I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, it might become clear.
Okay.
It also might not.
Yeah, he was like, take off your clothes. Ah, that's good enough. That's what it sounded like. Here, have a slipper. Okay. He advanced while Wolarski held a sword to his bare chest.
Whoa, Wolarski.
He was conducted from that room along passages that turned backwards and forwards and was at last brought to the doors of the lodge. Wolarski coughed. He was answered by the Masonic knock with mallets. The doors opened before them. A bass voice, Pierre was still blindfolded, questioned him as to who he was, when and where he was, and so on.
When and where he was born, sorry.
Oh. Yeah. Where and when he was born, and so on. Then he was again led somewhere still blindfolded, and as they went along, he was told allegories of the toils of his pilgrimage, of holy friendship, of the eternal architect of the universe, and of the courage with which he should endure toils and dangers. During these wanderings, Pierre noticed that he was spoken of now as the seeker, now as the sufferer, and now as the postulant, to the accompaniment of various knockings with mallets and swords. And as he was being led up to some object, he noticed a hesitation and uncertainty among his conductors. He heard those around him disputing in whispers, and one of them insisting that he should be led along a certain carpet. After that, they took his right hand, placed it on something, and told him to hold a pair of compasses to his left breast with the other hand, and to repeat after someone who read aloud an oath of fidelity to the laws of the order. Spirit lighted, as Pierre knew by the smell, and he was told that he would now see the lesser light. The bandage was taken off his eyes, and by the faint light of the burning spirit, Pierre, as in a dream, saw several men standing before him, wearing aprons like the readers, and holding swords in their hands pointed at his breast. Among them stood a man whose white shirt was stained with blood. On seeing this, Pierre moved forward with his breast toward the swords, meaning to pierce it. But the swords were drawn back from him, and he was at once blindfolded again.
Now thou hast seen the lesser light, uttered a voice. Then the candles were relit, and he was told that he would see the full light. The bandage was again removed, and more than 10 voices said together, "Sic transit gloria mundi." Mundi.
What does that mean?
Oh, I think you know.
It lives in you. I used to know that.
Are you looking it up?
Sick Gloria, sick John. Could I figure it out? I thought you knew. You made it sound like it was so obvious.
I was kidding.
Oh, sick Gloria. Thus passes the glory of the world.
What does that even mean?
Sometimes shortened to STGM. STGM.
STGM.
It's like the new YOLO. The old YOLO.
The oldest of YOLOs.
Serves as a reminder of the transitory nature of life and earthly honors. So like that's best. It's glued.
Thusly, it passes.
Cool.
Pierre gradually began to recover himself and looked about at the room and at the people in it. Round a long table covered with black sat some 12 men in garments like those he had already seen. Some of them Pierre had met in Petersburg society. In the president's chair sat a young man he did not know, with a peculiar cross hanging from his neck. On his right sat the Italian abbé whom Pierre had met at Anna Pavlovna's 2 years before. There were also present a very distinguished dignitary and a Swiss who had formerly been tutor at the Kuragins. All maintained a solemn silence, listening to the words of the president, who held a mallet in his hand. Let into the wall was a star-shaped light. At one side of the table was a small carpet with various figures worked upon it, and at the other was something resembling an altar on which lay a testament and a skull. Round it stood 7 large candlesticks like those used in churches. 2 of the brothers led Pierre up to the altar, placed his feet at right angles, and bade him lie down, saying that he must prostrate himself at the gates of the temple.
His feet at right angles? Like that?
I guess.
Okay.
For your viewing clarity, ta-da.
Okay. Pierre, he must first receive the trowel. Yes, he must, whispered one of the brothers.
Oh, hush, please, said another.
I like that they have little squabbles. Pierre, perplexed, looked round with his short-sighted eyes without obeying, and suddenly doubts arose in his mind. Where am I? What am I doing? Aren't they laughing at me? Should I be ashamed to remember this? But these doubts only lasted a moment. Pierre glanced at the serious faces of those around, remembered all he had already gone through, and realized that he could not stop halfway. He was aghast at his hesitation, and trying to arouse his former devotional feeling, prostrated himself before the gates of the temple. And really, the feeling of devotion returned to him even more strongly than before. When he had lain there some time, he was told to get up, and a white leather apron, such as the others wore, was put on him. Not paste. Such as the others wore was put on him. He was given a trowel and 3 pairs of gloves, and then the Grand Master addressed him. He told him that he should try to do nothing to stain the whiteness of that apron, which symbolized strength and purity. Then of the unexplained trowel, he told him to toil with it to cleanse his own heart from vice, and indulgently to smooth with it the heart of his neighbor. As to the first pair of gloves, a man's, he said that Pierre could not know their meaning but must keep them. The second pair of man's gloves he was to wear at the meetings. And finally of the third, a pair of women's gloves, he said, Dear brother, these women's gloves are intended for you too. Give them to the woman whom you shall honor most of all. This gift will be a pledge of your purity of heart to her whom you select to be your worthy helpmeet in masonry. And after a pause, he added, But beware, dear brother, that these gloves do not deck hands that are unclean. While the Grand Master said these last words, it seemed to Pierre that he grew embarrassed. Pierre himself grew still more confused, blushed like a child, till tears came to his eyes, began looking about him uneasily, and an awkward pause followed.
This silence was broken by one of the brethren, who led Pierre up to the rug and began reading to him from a manuscript book an explanation of all the figures on it: the sun, the moon, a hammer, a plumb line, a trowel, a rough stone, and a squared stone, a pillar, 3 windows, and so on. Then a place was assigned to Pierre. He was shown the signs of the lodge, told the password, and at last was permitted to sit down. The Grand Master began reading the statutes. They were very long, and Pierre, from joy, agitation, and embarrassment, was not in a state to understand what was being read. He managed to follow only the last words of the statutes, and these remained in his mind.
In our temples we recognize no other distinctions, read the Grand Master, but those between virtue and vice. Beware of making any distinctions which may infringe equality. Fly to a brother's aid, whoever he may be, exhort him who goeth astray, raise him that falleth. Never bear malice or enmity toward thy brother. Be kindly and courteous. Kindle in all hearts the flame of virtue. Share thy happiness with thy neighbor, and may envy never dim the purity of that bliss. Forgive thy enemy. Do not avenge thyself except by doing him good. Thus, fulfilling the highest law, thou shalt regain traces of the ancient dignity which thou hast lost.
He finished, and getting up, embraced and kissed Pierre, who, with tears of joy in his eyes, looked round him, not knowing how to answer the congratulations and greetings from acquaintances that met him on all sides. He acknowledged no acquaintances, but saw in all these men only brothers, and burned with impatience to set to work with them.
The Grand Master rapped with his mallet. All the masons sat down in their places, and one of them read an exhortation on the necessity of humility.
The Grand Master proposed that the last duty should be performed, and the distinguished dignitary, who bore the title of Collector of Arms, went round to all the brothers. Pierre would have liked to subscribe all he had, but fearing that it might look like pride, subscribed the same amount as the others.
The meeting was at an end, and on reaching home, Pierre felt as if he had returned from a long journey on which he had spent dozens of years, had become completely changed, and had quite left behind his former habits and way of life.
Oh, okay.
I didn't expect that.
No?
And I did not think War and Peace had that.
Yeah. I never thought about it, but I've never thought about this book ever. I need to get Advil, but
Okay.
if you want, you actually don't read.
Okay, I'll wait. What book will we do after? Something maybe by a woman? Taking questions. By a woman? Do they write books? I'm not sure. Do women know how to write?
I think one or two.
We will find them. Maybe one who did not have proper literature. I think next we're going to read. What do you think?
Oh, you seemed to start that sentence.
I know, I was
quite
like trying to think of
confidently.
something. How about Bridget Jones' Diary? No, you're right. It's too.
It's too classic.
I was gonna say too advanced.
Both.
You know?
It's both.
Should it be another classic? Is that the whole point of this? Yeah. Something just as heavy and dusty.
It doesn't have to be heavy or dusty. Dusty it does, actually. Doesn't need to be heavy.
Don Quixote. I like that suggestion.
That was your suggestion.
Yeah, I like that. You were like, I like Rapture.
Written by a woman, right?
No, I know.
That's not written by a woman, though. If you really want to do a woman, then I feel like it has to be like Frankenstein. Or...
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jane Austen is too obvious.
It's very obvious.
And then there's also the question of, like, why do they have to be white?
Well, classics. That's kind of what that term classics confers.
I know, but are there...
No, there are all classics, but they're not classics.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Capital C classics.
Right. European classics is
Right.
really what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's in French. German. I've always wanted to read Goethe.
Oh God.
Okay, chapter 5. The day after he had been received into the lodge, Pierre was sitting at home reading a book and trying to fathom the significance of the square, one side of which symbolized God, another moral things, a third... What?
Another moral thing.
Oh, okay, thank you. A third, physical things, and the fourth, a combination of these. Now and then his attention wandered from the book and the square, and he formed in imagination a new plan of life. On the previous evening at the lodge, he had heard that a rumor of his duel had reached the emperor, and that it would be wiser for him to leave Petersburg. Pierre proposed going to his estates in the south and there attending to the welfare of his serfs. He was joyfully planning this new life when Prince Vasily suddenly entered the room.
My dear fellow, what have you been up to in Moscow? Why have you quarreled with Helena, monsieur? You are under a delusion, said Prince Vasily as he entered. I know all about it, and I can tell you positively that Helena is as innocent before you as Christ was before the Jews.
Pierre was about to reply, but Prince Vasily interrupted him.
And why didn't you simply come straight to me, as to a friend? I know all about it and understand it all. Cool, he said. You behaved as becomes a man who values his honor, perhaps too hastily, but we won't go into that. But consider the position in which you are placing her and me in the eyes of society, and even of the court, he added, lowering his voice. She is living in Moscow and you are here. Remember, dear boy. And he drew Pierre's arm downwards. You still don't know what that is?
I don't.
I can picture it, but it's not possible to do sitting.
Okay. One day.
We'll have stand and show after this. Oh. Where is it? Drew Pierre's arm downwards. It is simply a misunderstanding. I expect you to feel it so yourself. Let us write her a letter at once and she'll come here and all will be explained. Or else, my dear boy, let me tell you, it's quite likely you'll have to suffer for it.
Prince Vasily gave Pierre a significant.
I know from reliable sources that the Dowager Empress is taking a keen interest in the whole affair. You know she is very gracious to Helena.
Pierre tried several times to speak. But on one hand, Prince Vasily did not let him, and on the other, Pierre himself feared to begin to speak in the tone of decided refusal and disagreement, in which he had firmly resolved to answer his father-in-law. Moreover, the words of the Masonic statutes, "Be kindly and courteous," recurred to him. He blinked, went red, got up, and sat down again, struggling with himself to do what was for him the most difficult thing in life, to say an unpleasant thing to a man's face, to say what the other, whoever he might be, did not expect. He was so used to submitting to Prince Vasily's tone of careless self-assurance that he felt he would be unable to withstand it now, but he also felt that on what he said now his future depended, whether he would follow that same old road or that new path so attractively shown him by the Masons, on which he firmly believed he would be reborn to a new life.
Now, dear boy, said Prince Vasily playfully, say yes, and I'll write to her myself, and we will kill the fatted calf.
But before Prince Vasily had finished his playful speech, Pierre, without looking at him, and with a kind of fury that made him like his father, muttered in a whisper, Prince? Oh, sorry.
In an echoing voice that seemed to come from everywhere. Prince, I did not ask you here. Go, please go. And he jumped up and opened the door for him.
Go, he repeated, amazed at himself and glad to see the look of confusion and fear that showed itself on Prince Vasily's face.
What's the matter with you? Are you ill?
Go, the quivering voice repeated, and Prince Vasily had to go without receiving any explanation.
A week later, Pierre, having taken leave of his new friends the Masons, and leaving large sums of money with them for alms, went away to his estates. His new brethren gave him letters to the Kiev and Odessa Masons, and promised to write to him and guide him in his new activity.
There's some backbone?
He just got it. It's new.
But was he courteous?
No.
So
then...
But he was supposed to be courteous to people.
Was he?
He said it. He was like, oh, but I have to be kindly and courteous.
When?
In his like inner monologue when he's like, trying to figure out what to do.
It's just
I guess
boundaries.
he said please. He said it is boundary. He said, please go now. Okay. Chapter 6. The duel between Pierre and Dolokhov was hushed up, and, in spite of the emperor's severity regarding duels at that time, neither the principals nor their seconds suffered for it. But the story of the duel, confirmed by Pierre's rupture with his wife, was the talk of society. Pierre, who had been regarded with patronizing condescension when he was an illegitimate son, and petted and extolled when he was the best match in Russia, had sunk greatly in the esteem of society after his marriage, when the marriageable daughters and their mothers had nothing to hope from him, especially as he did not know how and did not wish to court society's favor. Now he alone was blamed for what had happened. He was said to be insanely jealous and subject, like his father, to fits of bloodthirsty rage. And when, after Pierre's departure, Helena returned to Petersburg, she was received by all her acquaintances not only cordially, but even with a shade of deference due to her misfortune. When conversation turned on her husband, Helena assumed a dignified expression, which, with characteristic tact, she had acquired, though she did not understand its significance. This expression suggested that she had resolved to endure her troubles uncomplainingly, and that her husband was a cross laid upon her by God. Prince Vasily expressed his opinion more openly. He shrugged his shoulders when Pierre was mentioned, and, pointing to his forehead, remarked,
"A bit touched. I always said so."
"I said from the first," declared Anna Pavlovna, referring to Pierre. "I said at the time and before anyone else," she insisted on her priority, that senseless young man was spoiled by the depraved ideas of these days. I said so even at the time when everybody was in raptures about him, when he had just returned from abroad, and when, if you remember, he posed as a sort of Marat at one of my soirees. And how has it ended? I was against this
evenings, the same kind of soirees as before, such as she alone had the gift of arranging, at which was to be found the cream of really good society, the bloom of the intellectual essence of Petersburg, as she herself put it. Besides this refined selection of society, Anna Pavlovna's receptions were also distinguished by the fact that she always presented some new and interesting person to the visitors, and that nowhere else was the state of the political thermometer of legitimate Petersburg court society so dearly and distinctly indicated.
Toward the end of 1806, when all the sad details from Napoleon's destruction of the Prussian army at Jena and Auerstadt and the surrender of most of the Prussian fortresses had been received, when our troops had already entered Prussia and our second war with Napoleon was beginning, Anna Pavlovna gave one of her soirees. The cream of really good society consisted of the fascinating Helena, forsaken by her husband, Mortemart, the delightful Prince Hippolyta, who had just returned from Vienna, two diplomatists, the old aunt. Oh, her, she's there, good.
Cool. As long as it's not a random gentlewoman who came to the house.
A young man referred to in that drawing room as a man of great merit, un homme de beaucoup de mérite, a newly appointed maid of honor, and her mother, and several other less noteworthy persons.
The novelty Anna Pavlovna was setting before her guests that evening was Boris Drubetskoy, who had just arrived as a special messenger from the Prussian army and was aide-de-camp to a very important personage.
The temperature shown by the political thermometer to the company that evening was this:
"Whatever the European sovereigns and commanders may do to countenance Bonaparte and to cause me and us in general annoyance and mortification, our opinion of Bonaparte cannot alter. We shall not cease to express our sincere views on that subject, and can only say to the King of Prussia and others, so much the worse for you. Tu l'as voulu, George Dandin?" Who the hell is that?
I don't know.
That's all we have to say about it. What a confusing message.
Wait, I want to actually know what this is.
You do.
Yeah, because apparently this is the political thermometer. Whatever the European sovereigns and commanders, our opinion. So we have to keep our opinion of Bonaparte. We have to keep talking about it. But I can only say to the King of Prussia and others, too bad.
Tu l'as voulu.
You wanted it, George Dandang.
George Dan. Dan noodles.
It's just an expression, like George Dandang.
Joe
You're
Schmo.
such a George Dandang. I don't know. Is that the King of Prussia?
I don't think so.
George Dandang. It sounds French.
Dan. It sounds French.
Oh, it's a French comedy by Moliere.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I like him.
Do you?
Mm.
I don't. Okay. I don't know why that's. Tu l'as vu, Georges Dandin?
I don't know what the European sovereigns and commanders I don't know what kind of pressure is being exerted by them to change the Russian opinion of Bonaparte. I don't know what the pressure is that the European sovereigns and commanders are exerting on the Russians in order to influence their opinion of Bonaparte. Is it that as European nations are like getting defeated, they're like, guys, Napoleon's not so bad.
Let's just submit to him?
I don't know.
That's what you think?
I don't know, because the Russians don't like him.
Right.
So it sounds like, and they're like, no, we're still gonna, like, you wanted this war. It might be that to help to know this historically. Where's Mr. V when you need him?
Maybe it's in the play. This Moliere play is about the folly a man commits when he marries a woman of higher rank than his own. Does that go with that explanation? Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Let's say it's that.
Like it sounds like you made your bed, now lie in it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. When Boris, who was to be served up to the guests, entered the drawing room, almost all the company had assembled, and the conversation, guided by Anna Pavlovna, was about our diplomatic relations with Austria and the hope of an alliance with her.
Boris, grown more manly and looking... Sorry, I just want to make sure I got that. Boris, grown more manly and looking fresh, rosy, and self-possessed, entered the drawing room elegantly dressed in the uniform of an aide-de-camp and was duly conducted to pay his respects to the aunt and then brought back... Of course, everyone goes to the old aunt first. And then brought back to the general circle.
Anna Pavlovna gave him her shriveled hand to kiss. You're so...
Every time he describes a hand, it's gross.
And introduced him to several persons whom he did not know, giving him a whispered description of each.
Prince Hippolyte Kuragin, Monsieur Krug, I don't know, the charge d'affaires from Copenhagen, a profound intellect, and simply Mr. Shitov. A man of great... What?
Shitov.
A man of great merit. This of the man usually so described.
Thanks to Anna Mikhailovna's efforts, his own tastes, and the peculiarities of his reserved nature, Boris had managed during his service to place himself very advantageously. He was aide-de-camp to a very important personage.
You mentioned.
Had been sent on a very important mission to Prussia.
That too.
And had just returned from there as a special messenger. He had become thoroughly conversant with that unwritten code with which he had been so pleased at Olmütz, and according to which an ensign might rank incomparably higher than a general.
Ensign.
Thank you. And according to which was needed for success in the service was not effort or work or courage or perseverance, but only the knowledge of how to get on with those who can grant rewards. And he was himself often surprised at the rapidity of his success and at the inability of others to understand these things.
Interesting.
In consequence of this discovery, his whole manner of life, all his relations with old friends, all his plans for his future were completely altered. He was not rich, but would spend his last groat to be better dressed than others, and would rather deprive himself of many pleasures than allow himself to be seen in a shabby equipage, or appear in the streets of Petersburg in an old uniform. He made friends with and sought the acquaintance of only those above him in position, and who could therefore be of use to him. He liked Petersburg and despised Moscow. The remembrance of the Rostovs' house and of his childish love for Natasha was unpleasant to him, and he had not once been to see the Rostovs since the day of his departure for the army. To be in Anna Pavlovna's drawing-room he considered an important step up in the service, and he at once understood his role, letting his hostess make use of whatever interest he had to offer. He himself carefully scanned each face, appraising the possibilities of establishing intimacy with each of those present, and the advantages that might accrue. He took the seat indicated to him beside the fair Helena and listened to the general conversation.
Vienna considers the basis of the proposed treaty so unattainable that not even a continuity of most brilliant successes would secure them, and she doubts the means we have of gaining them. That is the actual phrase used by the Vienna cabinet, said the Danish charge d'affaires.
The doubt is flattering, said the man of profound intellect, with a subtle smile.
Hang on, can we just read that sentence?
Yeah, okay. You mean what you said, right?
Yeah.
Vienna considers the basis of the proposal so unattainable that not even...
So super unattainable.
Yeah, and she does the means we have of gaining them. Okay. So they're trying to...
Vienna thinks the treaty is unattainable.
Yeah.
The basis of the treaty, which we don't know.
Right.
Okay.
The doubt is flattering. Why is the doubt flattering? Why is the doubt flattering?
Maybe he's being sarcastic.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sure. We must distinguish between the Vienna cabinet and the Emperor of Austria, said Mortemart. The Emperor of Austria can never have thought of such a thing. It is only the cabinet that says it.
Ah, my dear Vicomte, put in Anna Pavlovna. L'Europe, for some reason she called it l'Europe, as if that was a specially refined French pronunciation. Is that what you think it's supposed to be said like?
Europe.
L'Europe. Maybe she's saying l'Europe.
Yeah.
Which she could allow herself when conversing with a Frenchman. L'Europe ne sera jamais notre allié sincère. I don't know how to say
Europe will never be our sincere ally. After that, Anna Pavlovna led up to the courage and firmness of the King of Prussia in order to draw Boris into the conversation.
Boris listened attentively to each of the speakers, awaiting his turn, but managed meanwhile to look around repeatedly at his neighbor, the beautiful Helena, whose eyes several times met those of the handsome young aide-de-camp with a smile.
Speaking of the position of Prussia, Anna Pavlovna very naturally asked Boris to tell them about his journey to Glogau, and in what state he found the Prussian army. Boris, speaking with deliberation, told them in pure, correct French many interesting details about the armies in the court, carefully abstaining from expressing an opinion of his own about the facts he was recounting. For some time he engrossed the general attention, and Anna Pavlovna felt that the novelty she had served up was received with pleasure by all her visitors. The greatest attention of all to Boris's narrative was shown by Helena. She asked him several questions about his journey and seemed greatly interested in the state of the Prussian army. As soon as he had finished, she turned to him with her usual smile.
You absolutely must come and see me, she said in a tone that implied that, for certain considerations he could not know of. This was absolutely necessary.
On Tuesday, between 8 and 9, it will give me great pleasure.
Boris promised to fulfill her wish and was about to begin a conversation with her when Anna Pavlovna called him away on the pretext that her aunt wished to see him, hear him.
You know her husband. She can't see. She's old.
Right.
You know her husband, of course, said Anna Pavlovna, closing her eyes and indicating Helena with a sorrowful gesture. Oh, she is such an unfortunate and charming woman. Don't mention him before her. Please don't. It's too painful for her.
I wasn't going to mention her.
Don't.
Why would I mention? Why would I bring up her husband? We're clearly in a love affair right now. So.
Sure.
I think
Obviously,
the most uninteresting.
She smiled at him. Done. Yeah, that's.
No, like it really is done. I think in this world.
What are you saying?
I think maybe the most boring and inconsequential of love affairs would be Boris and Helena.
I'd be like, who cares?
Why do we care? Because we don't like Helena.
Mm-hmm.
She's terminally uninteresting. And Boris sounds like a tool.
He really does.
Right? Okay.
Chapter 7. When Boris and Anna Pavlovna returned to the others, Prince Hippolyta had the ear of the company.
Bending forward in his armchair, he said, Le Roi de Prusse, and having said this, laughed. Everyone turned toward him.
Le Roi de Prusse, Hippolyta said interrogatively, again laughing, and then calmly and seriously sat back down in his chair.
What?
Okay.
He's like, what did you say? And then it's like,
yeah, pretty much. I have no idea what's going on.
He describes such weird social moments that I don't actually know what he's going for.
Yeah. Wait, Anna Pavlovna waited for him to go on, but he seemed quite decided to say no more. She began to tell him how it passed down
It is the sword of the great which she began, but Hippolyta interrupted her with words, okay. Le Roi de Prusse. And again, as soon as all turned toward him, excused himself and said no more.
Okay. Anna Pavlovna frowned. Mortemart, Hippolyta's friend, addressed him firmly.
Wait, has he just like
I don't know.
Completely lost his mind?
I don't know if he's cracked. We're going to find out.
Come now. What about you? What about your Roi de Prusse?
Hippolyta laughed as if ashamed of laughing. Good.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's nothing. I only wish to say he wanted to repeat a joke he had heard in Vienna and which he had been trying all that evening to get in. I only wish to say that we are wrong to fight pour le Roi de Prusse. I love him. What is happening in his brain?
I don't know if he's just really drunk. I don't know how drunk people are at these soirees. There seems to be a lot of wine.
Yeah, good point.
Boris smiled circumspectly.
Can I tell you something gross? My brother-in-law said that apparently the French, one of the reasons they drink so much wine with cheese or with, one of the reasons that's such a frequent thing is because the wine is actually like necessary to break down the heavy, like indigestible dairy stuff that they eat.
Really?
So it's like the cheese or the butter, like whatever that stuff would just like a rock, I don't know, would be like, you know how they say that a lot of people are lactose intolerant?
Yeah.
It might be somewhat connected to that, like that amount of cheese or whatever is actually not.
I did not think wine was good for your digestion.
I don't know if it's good for your digestion as much as corrosive to
Right.
anything.
I thought you were going to say something different. I don't know why my mind went there.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought like,
Was it going to be so good?
no, it was going to be stupid. I don't know why I thought this. Now that I think about it, it's really dumb. But I thought like, oh, they're eating so much cheese that like they must be really smelly, and so they would
need formaldehyde
to like to like take away their senses in a certain way.
You know what though? Isn't there some stupid cliche about the French being strong smelling? Isn't there? I wonder if that has to do with dairy originally. Because someone told me that that the non-dairy eating Asians, and this is for everybody else's benefit, called white people cheese eaters because apparently they could smell the dairy
in their pores. Oh,
there's none of that going on here.
Jesus,
just so you know, there's no cheese eaters.
I think there's only one way to find out.
One of us has to eat a lot of cheese, or the other one has to get ready to sniff. What?
Yeah, I wish you could like capture. Can you capture smell in a bottle?
Yes.
What? Can you?
I can't tell you a story, but I can't tell this one.
Okay.
But remind me of that. It is maybe one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened.
Because then you could like capture someone's smell, then force or just have them eat a lot of cheese, and then capture their new smell. See if it's changing.
One of the people at Summit was like a smell scientist.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Smells, and that's the official term.
I don't remember
what
her official term was.
I don't know what smell would be scientifically. Odorology.
I really want to know. Okay. Where are we?
This was just
where Boris smiled. So
Boris smiled circumspectly, so that it might be taken as ironical or appreciative according to the way the joke was received.
Christ, Boris. So contrived. Everybody laughed.
Your joke is too bad. It's witty but unjust. I know. What is the joke? I only wish to say that we are wrong to fight for the roi de Bruce. Good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
We're just lacking that social tact everyone else seems to have. Your joke is too bad. It's witty but unjust, said Anna Pavlovna, shaking her little shriveled finger at him.
We are not fighting pour le roi de Prusse, but for right principles. Oh, that wicked Principolita, she said.
The conversation did not flag all evening and turned chiefly on political news.
It became particularly animated toward the end of the evening when the rewards bestowed by the emperor were mentioned.
You know, received a snuff box with the portrait last year, said the man of profound intellect. Why shouldn't SS get the same distinction?
Pardon me, a snuff box with the emperor's portrait is a reward, but not a distinction, said the diplomatist. A gift, rather.
There are precedents. I may mention Schwarzenberg.
The goddamn... Are people talking about it?
I have no idea.
It's impossible, replied another.
Well, you bet. The ribbon of the order is a different matter.
When everybody rose to go, thank God, Helena, who had spoken very little all the evening, again turned to Boris, asking him in a tone of caressing, significant command. That is quite intense. To come to her on Tuesday. Caressing, significant.
It is of great importance to me, she said, turning with a smile toward Anna Pavlovna, and she smiled at her. And Anna Pavlovna, with the same sad smile with which she spoke of her exalted patroness, supported Helena's wish. I wish.
It seemed as if from some words Boris had spoken that evening about the Prussian army, Helena had suddenly found it necessary to see him. She seemed to promise to explain that necessity to him when he came on Tuesday.
But on Tuesday evening, having come to Helena's splendid salon, Boris received no clear explanation of why it had been necessary for him to come.
There were other guests, and the Countess talked little to him, and only as he kissed her hand on taking leave said unexpectedly and in a whisper, with a strangely unsmiling face, "Come to dinner tomorrow." In the evening. You must come. Come.
During that stay in Petersburg, Boris became an intimate in the Countess's house.
You need to come over for dinner. What is happening?
You must come.
Tomorrow evening. I can't even. It's really hard not to laugh.
Wait, what are we supposed to take away from that?
I think we
all know.
I think we all.
What? Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He really doesn't want to go in then.
Who?
Tolstoy.
Yeah, she's like a sociopath. I don't, what is she even doing right now? Like, what is she doing? She's like, come to dinner, and it's like super warm and what's it called? And then like barely talks to him and invites other people, and then it's like, but no, seriously. I'm not fucking around. You need to come to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what she's doing. She's nuts.
Chapter 8.
Yay.
The war was flaming
We
up.
need to slow down. I don't have my handstand.
We're moving forward. That's it. We're going to be reading 4 hours a day now. No. The war was flaming up and nearing the Russian frontier. Heard curses on Bart, the enemy of mankind. Militiamen and recruits were being enrolled in the villages, and from the seat of war came contradictory news, false as usual, and therefore variously interpreted. The life of old Prince Bolkonsky, Prince Andrew, and Princess Mary had greatly changed since 1805.
In 1806, the old prince was made one of the 8 commanders-in-chief, then appointed to supervise the enrollment decreed throughout Russia. What? Despite the weakness of age, which had become particularly noticeable since the time when he thought his son had been killed, he did not think it right to refuse a duty to which he had been appointed by the emperor himself, and this fresh opportunity for action gave him new energy and strength. He was continually traveling through the 3 provinces entrusted to him, was pedantic in the fulfillment of his duties, severe to cruel with his subordinates, and went into everything down to the minutest details himself. Princess Mary had ceased taking lessons in mathematics from her father, and when the old prince was at home, went to his study with the wet nurse and little Prince Nicholas, as his grandfather called him. The baby Prince Nicholas lived with his wet nurse and Nurse Savishna in the late princess's rooms, and Princess Mary spent most of the day in the nursery, taking a mother's place to her little nephew as best she could. Mademoiselle Bourrienne, too,
Still there. Okay.
seemed passionately fond of the boy. Watch that. Watch out for that.
Okay.
And Princess Mary often deprived herself to give her friend the pleasure of dandling the little angel, as she called her nephew, and playing with him. Excuse me. No.
Oh.
Nothing, I'm just mad.
Why?
Because of stupid Bourrienne. And now Mary's like, I have my nephew. Nobody could have my nephew.
No one gets to dandle him.
Don't you dandle.
Near the altar of the church at Bald Hills, there was a chapel over the tomb of the little princess. And in this chapel was a marble monument brought from Italy, representing an angel with outspread wings ready to fly upwards. What?
The next sentence.
Oh, the angel's the angel's upper lip was slightly raised, as though about to smile. And once, on coming out of the chapel, Prince Andrew and Princess Mary admitted to one another that the angel's face reminded them strangely of the little princess. But what was still stranger, though of this Prince Andrew said nothing to his sister, was that
No.
was that in the expression the sculptor had happened to give the angel's face, Prince Andrew read the same mild reproach he had read on the face of his dead wife. Oh, why have you done this to me?
What are they doing? Why have they resurrected this moment? It was the weirdest moment. Oh, God. Soon after Prince Andrew's return, the old prince made over to him a large estate, Bogucharovo, about 25 miles from Bald Hills. Partly because of the depressing memories associated with Bald Hills, partly because Prince Andrew did not always feel equal to bearing with his father's peculiarities, and partly because he needed solitude, Prince Andrew made use of Bogucharovo, began building, and spent most of his time there away from his kid.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. After the Austerlitz campaign, Prince Andrew had firmly resolved not to continue his military service, and when the war recommenced and everybody had to serve, he took a post under his father in the recruitment, so as to avoid active service. I mean, they're still serving the war.
No, like, he means he doesn't want to get full.
I think it's because he's like, war's stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I forgot about that. All that matters is my son, who I don't live with.
The old prince and his son seem to have changed roles since the campaign of 1805. The old man, roused by activity, expected the best results from the new campaign, while Prince Andrew, on the contrary, taking no part in the war, only
regretting that he was taking no part in the war?
Apparently.
Okay. On February 26, 1807, the old prince set off on one of his circuits. Prince Andrew remained at Bald Hills as usual during his father's absence. Little Nicholas had been unwell for 4 days. The coachman, who had driven the old prince to town, returned, bringing papers and letters for Prince Andrew.
Not finding the young prince in his study, the valet went with the letters to Princess Mary's apartments, but did not find him there. He was told that the prince had gone to the nursery.
"If you please, Your Excellency, Petrushia has brought some papers," said one of the nursemaids to Prince Andrew, who was sitting on a child's little chair while, frowning with trembling hands, he poured drops from a medicine bottle into a wine glass half full of water.
"What is it?" he said crossly, and his hand shaking unintentionally, he poured too many drops into the glass. He threw the mixture onto the floor and asked for some more water. The maid brought it.
There were in the room a child's cot, 2 boxes, 2 armchairs, a table, a child's table, and the little chair on which Prince Andrew was sitting. The curtains were drawn, and a single candle was burning on the table, screened by a bound music book so that the light did not fall on the cot.
"My dear," said Princess Mary, addressing her brother from beside the cot where she was standing, "better wait a bit later."
"Oh, leave off. You always talk nonsense and keep putting things off, and this is what comes of it," said Prince Andrew in an exasperated whisper, evidently meaning to wound his sister.
"My dear, really, it's better not to wake him. He's asleep," said the princess in a tone of entreaty.
Prince Andrew got up and went on tiptoe up to the little bed, wineglass in hand.
"Perhaps we'd really better not wake him," he said, hesitating.
"As you please. Really, I think so, but as you please," said Princess Mary, evidently intimidated and confused that her opinion had prevailed. She drew her brother's attention to the maid who was... That's so weird. She's like, I really don't think so. And then when he's like, maybe not, she's like, what? Maybe you should do it.
Princess Mary lives a great life.
Oh, God.
Obviously.
She's so cowed. She drew her brother's attention to the maid who was calling him in a whisper.
It was the second night that neither of them had slept, watching the boy who was in a high fever. These last days, mistrusting their household doctor and expecting another for whom they had sent to town, they had been trying first one remedy and then another. Worn out by sleeplessness and anxiety, they threw their burden of sorrow on one another and reproached and disputed with each other.
Petrushka has come with papers for your father, whispered the maid.
Prince Andrew went out.
Devil take them, he muttered. He's really becoming his father. And after listening to the verbal instructions his father had sent and taking the correspondence and his father's letter, he returned to the nursery.
Well, he asked.
Still the same. Wait, for heaven's sake. Karl Ivanich always says that sleep is more important than anything, whispered Princess Mary with a sigh.
Prince Andrew went up to the child and felt him. He was burning hot.
Confound you and your Karl Ivanich. He took the glass with the drops and again went up to the cot.
Andrew, don't, said Princess Mary.
But he scowled at her angrily, though also with suffering in his eyes, and stooped glass in hand over the infant.
I wish it, he said. I beg you, give it him.
Princess Mary shrugged her shoulders, but took the glass submissively, and calling the nurse, began giving the medicine. The child screamed hoarsely. Prince Andrew winced and, clutching his head, went out and sat down on a sofa in the next room.
He still had all the letters in his hand. Opening them mechanically, he began reading. The old prince, now and then using abbreviations, wrote in his large, elongated hand on blue paper as follows.
Have just this moment received by special messenger very joyful news, if it's not false. Benigsen seems to have obtained a complete victory over Bonaparte at Eylau. In Petersburg, everyone is rejoicing, and the rewards sent to the army are innumerable. Though he is a German, I congratulate him. I can't make out what the commander at Korchevo, a certain Kandrikov, is up to. Till now, the additional men and provisions have not arrived. Gallop after him at once and say I'll have his head off if everything is not here in a week. I've received another letter about the Prusich-Eylau battle from Petenka. He took part in it, and it's all true. When mischief makers don't meddle, even a German beats Bonaparte. He is said to be fleeing a great disorder. Mind you, gallop off to Korchevo without delay and carry out instructions.
What? German.
Useless.
They're just like, no.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Prince Andrew sighed and broke the seal of another envelope. It was a closely written letter of 2 sheets from Bilibin.
He's like the guy who lives with his dad, I think. The gentleman of the house.
Okay. Sure. He folded it up.
He's not the architect.
No. He folded it up without reading it and reread his father's letter, ending with the words, "Gallop off to Korchevo and carry out instructions."
Sorry, I'm trying to figure it out.
Mm.
No, pardon me, I won't go now till the child is better, thought he, going to the door and looking into the nursery.
Princess Mary was still standing by the cot, gently rocking the baby.
Ah, yes, and what else did he say that's unpleasant, thought Prince Andrew, recalling his father's letter. Yes, we have gained a victory over Bonaparte, just when I'm not serving. Okay, I just want to point out that I don't think his revelatory experience
No kidding.
really set in.
Oh.
Yes, he's always poking fun at me. Ah, well, let him. And he began reading Bilibin's letter, which was written in French. He read without understanding half of it, read only to forget, if but for a moment, what he had too long been thinking of so painfully to the exclusion of all else. What do you think that is?
It was, I'm supposed to be at war.
It's probably that.
Achieving glory and fame.
Oh, he's just like regressed completely.
I mean, we never really saw him be a changed man, to be fair. He had lots of thoughts.
It was all like while he was lying there, yeah.
Yeah. And when he came home, it was like, And then his wife died. Like, we didn't see any actions. You get to keep reading? One more?
Yeah. I'm just trying to find
Bilibin? Yeah.
Russian diplomat to Austria appears in volume 1, probably book 1, part 2. Oh, I don't know what volume 1 is. Volume 1, part 2, chapter 10. Entertains Prince Andrei Bolkonsky during the prince's stay in Brno. When has that happened? To inform the Austrian government of Russian victories. That is a totally unhelpful reminder.
Bilibin.
A friend of Andrew's, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Okay. He's in the next chapter, so maybe there's.
I don't know why we haven't looked up one of these like character guides before.
Oh, that would be useful.
Yep. Wow, there's a lot of people going looking through it, in this kind of way. I realize how many. There's been a lot of people.
Yeah, there has.
I don't know if I fully realized that. Like I know there's a bunch of dudes, like a bunch of like military dudes.
Yeah, I wonder how many I could just remember off the top of my head. There's Bagration, there's Dolgorukov, there's Tushin,
Mm-hmm.
there's Nizvitsky.
Mm-hmm.
Does Denisov count? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the guy that they were like, who stole from Denisov? There's Kudazov. Thank you. There's Way Rather. I'm trying to think of who the others are.
That was pretty fucking good, man. That was pretty good. There's that guy who's got a really short name that Vera was teased about.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I totally. Where did that go?
that guy. There's that regimental commander, the fat one who was overseeing Dolokov's regiment.
Yeah. I was trying to remember his name.
I don't know if I ever knew it actually.
Who's Tikin? No, is that someone's valet? I think so.
I think so.
It's these random names, and I'm like, is this guy important?
Ticket.
I don't get why like some people get names and some people don't. Tikin.
It's not very well organized. We should go through this.
Yeah, maybe we should do like one specific. One specific
To track everyone's thread
episode
or something.
where we just go like, hey, we're just gonna recap all the characters, where they're at.
It might be helpful for us, yeah. Too.
Maybe.
Okay. I haven't gotten to chicken.
Right. I'm just looking at Bilibin. Bilibin was a man of 35, a bachelor. I don't know. This is all he's very
Good job.
That's Bilibin. Okay.
Sounds like a bit of a Hobbit name, doesn't it?
Yeah, Bilbo.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Bilbo. Okay. Chapter 9. We'll start, yeah?
Yes.
Bilibin was now at army headquarters in a diplomatic capacity, and though he wrote in French and used French jests and French idioms, he described the whole campaign with a fearless self-censure and self-derision genuinely Russian. Bilibin wrote that the obligation of diplomatic discretion tormented him. He was happy to have in Prince Andrew a reliable correspondent to whom he could pour out the bile he had accumulated at the sight of all that was being done in the army. The letter was old, having been written before the battle at Preussisch-Eylau.
Since the day of our brilliant success at Austerlitz, wrote Bilibin, as you know, my dear prince, I never leave headquarters. I have certainly acquired a taste for war, and it is just as well for me. What I have seen during 3 months is incredible.
I begin ab ovo, whatever that is. The enemy of the human race attacks the Prussians. The Prussians are our faithful allies who have only betrayed us 3 times in 3 years. We take up their cause, but it turns out that the enemy of the human race pays no heed to our fine speeches and in his rude and savage way throws himself on the Prussians without giving them time to finish the parade they had begun. And in 2 twists of the hand, he breaks them to smithereens and installs himself in the palace at Potsdam.
I most ardently desire, writes the King of Prussia to Bonaparte, that your Majesty should be received and treated in my palace in a manner agreeable to yourself. And in so far as circumstances allowed, I have hastened to take all steps to that end. May I have succeeded. The Prussian generals pride themselves on being polite to the French, and lay down their arms at the first demand.
The head of the garrison at Glogau, with 10,000 men, asks the King of Prussia what he is to do if he is summoned to surrender. All this is abs- yeah, but I also think it's helpful.
Okay. In short, hoping to settle matters by taking up a warlike attitude, it turns out that we have landed ourselves in war, and what is more, in war on our own frontiers, with and for the King of Prussia. We have everything in perfect order, only one little thing is lacking, namely a commander-in-chief. As it was considered that the Austerlitz success might have been more decisive had the commander-in-chief not been so young, all our octogenarians were reviewed, and of Prozorovsky and Kaminsky, the latter was preferred. The general comes to us, Suvorov-like, in a kibitka, and is received with acclamations of joy and triumph.
On the 4th, the first courier arrives from Petersburg. The mails are taken to the field marshal's room, for he likes to do everything himself. I am called in to help sort the letters and take those meant for us. The field marshal looks on and waits for letters addressed to him. We search, but none are to be found. The field marshal grows impatient and sets to work himself and finds letters from the emperor to Count T, Prince V, and others. Then he bursts into one of his wild furies and rages at everyone and everything, seizes the letters, opens them, and reads those from the emperor addressed to others. Ah, so that's the way they treat me. No confidence in me. Ah, ordered to keep an eye on me. Very well, then. Get along with you, so he writes the famous order of the day to General Bennigsen.
I am wounded and cannot ride and consequently cannot command the army. You have brought your army corps to Pultusk, routed. Here it is exposed and without fuel or forage, so something must be done. And as you yourself reported to Count Buxhowden yesterday, you must think of retreating to our frontier, which do today.
From all my riding, he writes to the emperor, I have got a saddle sore, which, coming after all my previous injuries, quite prevents my riding and commanding so vast an army. So, I have passed on the command to the general next in seniority, Count Buxhowden, having sent him my whole staff and all that belongs to it, advising him, if there is a lack of... Sorry, who is this? Because it sounded like the field marshal.
I thought it was Kamensky. The general comes to us, like whoever was named commander-in-chief.
Yeah, but then this field marshal drama.
Right. I mean, then he bursts into an enraged everyone at once. He's like, oh, put something with him.
So the field marshal writes the order.
Yeah, I guess so.
On behalf of the general? Like, is he doing like the most uncool thing imaginable? To write a like pretend resignation from his freaking field marshal?
You think that's what he's doing?
I don't know.
The males are taken to the field marshal's room where he likes to do everything himself.
Who's the field marshal?
Right.
Is that a different person? Sounds like it, right?
I'm not sure. That's why I'm like, oh, I feel like sometimes these people get called different things. I'm called in to help sort the letters and take those meant for us. The field marshal looks on and waits for letters addressed to him. We search, but none are to be found. The field marshal grows impatient and sets to work himself and finds letters from the emperor to Count T, Prince B, and others. And he bursts into one of his wild furies and rages at everyone and everything, sees the letters, opens them, and reads those from the emperor. Ah, so that's the way they treat me. No confidence, because he didn't get any letters. So he writes the famous order of the day to General.
So he personally feels overlooked.
Yeah, because I was writing the letters.
So he's writing to the emperor as if he's someone else? Because if he's been overlooked, then he's not being asked to command this army that this letter is about.
Like, it sounds like he was asked, but because he didn't get a letter, he's like, huh, that's how it is.
That sounds insane.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not sure that someone who's actually in charge of the entire army would be that insane.
The hearsay, it's like we're getting this from another letter.
Yeah, but he seems to be quite specific in his language.
Right. I don't know. Maybe he's old too, and he's like, whatever, I don't need this bullshit. So he comes up with an excuse.
Right. I'm just curious, like, whose perspective the letter is written from.
I think it's Bilibin's, right?
No, not that letter. The letter in the letter.
Whose perspective? Oh, yeah. This is the field marshal. I'm not sure if that is Kamensky.
Okay, this letter goes on for a damn long time, so why don't we just read it?
Okay.
And hope that it becomes... The head of the garrison at Glogau, with 10,000 men, asks the King of Prussia what he is to do if he is summoned to surrender. All this is absolutely true.
Really?
I don't know how to describe it. Right after lay down their arms at the first demand is the end of it.
I thought we were here.
No.
Did you already read that?
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Sorry. I think I just started reading from where I mentally was like, I do not know what's happening, so I might have checked out.
Yeah. It's from Only Writing, right? Or we have like started
from in short.
Yeah.
No.
In short?
No. I begin ab ovo. I forgot about this. Sorry. This is really, my thing is doing a weird thing, I think. Like, I can't tell if it's going to the previous page or to the next page. I don't think it's a swipe.
What is happening?
It's not a swipe.
Oh, it's not.
No.
What do you do? I ruined it. I think I'm too far now. It's not a swipe. You just touch it.
Yeah.
Got it.
From all my writing, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's where I was.
I've got a saddle sore. We read that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't get through it.
Okay. From all my writing, he writes to the emperor, I have got a saddle sore, which, coming after my previous injuries, quite prevents my riding and commanding so vast an army. So I have passed on the command to the general next in seniority, Count Buxhowden, having sent him my whole staff and all that belongs to it, advising him, if there is a lack of bread, to move farther into the interior of Prussia. For only 1 day's ration of bread remains, and in some regiments none at all, as reported by the division commanders, Osterman and Sedmoretsky. And all that the peasants has been eaten up. I myself will remain in hospital at Ostrolenka till I recover. In regard to which I humbly submit my report with the information that if the army remains in its present bivouac another fortnight, there will not be a healthy man left in it by spring.
Grant leave to retire to his country seat to an old man who was already in any case dishonored by being unable to fulfill the great and glorious task for which he was chosen. I shall await your most gracious permission here in hospital, that I may not have to play the part of a secretary rather than commander in the army. My removal from the army does not produce the slightest stir. A blind man has left it. There are thousands such as I in Russia.
The field marshal is angry with the emperor and he punishes us all. Isn't it logical?
This is the first act. Those that follow are naturally increasingly interesting and entertaining. After the field marshal's declares that must give battle, but commander-in-chief by seniority, but General Bennigsen does not quite see it, more particularly as it is he and his courts who are within sight of the enemy. And his core.
It's come up like 8 times. I was like, it's going to keep coming up.
Yeah, okay. His core. Who are within sight of the enemy, and he wishes to profit by the opportunity to fight a battle on his own hand, as the Germans say. He does so. This is the Battle of Pultusk, which is considered a great victory, but in my opinion was nothing of the kind. We civilians, as you know, have a very bad way of deciding whether a battle was won or lost. Those who retreat after a battle have lost it, is what we say, and according to that, it is we who lost the Battle of Pultusk. In short, we retreat after the battle, but send a courier to Petersburg with news of a victory, and General Bennigsen, hoping to receive from Petersburg the post of commander-in-chief as a reward for his victory, does not give up the command of the army to General Buxhowden. During this interregnum, we begin a very original and interesting series of maneuvers.
Oh my god, my brain got a bit tired.
Okay,
are you tracking?
Yeah. So the field marshal had a little bit of a fit. Said, "I'm not doing this," and it should fall from me to the next person in seniority, Buxhowden. However, Bennigsen was in command before that could get reshuffled.
So it is an opportunity.
And there was a battle, Pultusk, which they said was a victory. Mm-hmm. However, they had to retreat.
Right.
So actually it wasn't a victory at all, but because everyone thinks it was, he wants to stay on as general. And as opposed to Buxhowden.
Right.
Okay. Hoping
our aim is no longer, I think, is where we
Right. Our aim is no longer, as it should be, to avoid or attack the enemy, but solely to avoid General Buxhowden, who by right of seniority should be our chief. So energetically do we pursue this aim that after crossing an unfordable river, we burn the bridges to separate ourselves from our enemy, who at the moment is not Bonaparte, but Buxhowden.
God.
General Buxhowden was all but attacked and captured by a superior enemy force as a result of one of these maneuvers. that enabled us to escape him. Buxhowden pursues us. We scuttle. He hardly crosses the river to our side before we recross to the other. At last our enemy, Buxhowden, catches us and attacks. Both generals are angry, and the result is a challenge on Buxhowden's part and an epileptic fit on Bennigsen's. But at the critical moment, the courier who carried the news of our victory at Pultusk to Petersburg returns bringing our appointment as commander-in-chief, and our first foe, Buxhowden, is vanquished. We can now turn our thoughts to the second, Bonaparte. But as it turns out, just at that moment, a third enemy rises before us, namely the Orthodox Russian soldiers, loudly demanding bread, meat, biscuits, fodder, and whatnot. The stores are empty, the roads impassable. The Orthodox begin looting, and in a way of which our last campaign can give you no idea. Half the regiments form bands and scour the countryside and put everything to fire and sword. The inhabitants are totally ruined, the hospitals overflow with sick, and famine is everywhere. Twice the marauders even attack our headquarters, and the commander-in-chief has to ask for a battalion to disperse them. During one of these attacks, they carried off my empty portmanteau and my dressing gown. The emperor proposes to give all commanders of divisions the right to shoot marauders, but I much fear this will oblige one half the army to shoot the other.
At first, Prince Andrew read with his eyes only, but after a while, in spite of himself, although he knew how far it was safe to trust Bilibin, what he had read began to interest him more and more. When he had read thus far, he crumpled the letter up and threw it away. It was not what he had read that vexed him, but the fact that the life out there, in which he had now no part, could perturb him. He shut his eyes, rubbed his forehead as if to rid himself of all interest in what he had read, and listened to what was passing in the nursery. Suddenly, he thought he heard a strange noise through the door. He was seized with alarm lest something should have happened to the child while he was reading the letter. He went on tiptoe to the nursery door and opened it.
Just as he went in, he's no longer by the cot.
"My dear," he heard what seemed to him her despairing whisper behind him.
As often happens after long sleeplessness and long anxiety, he was seized by an unreasoning panic. It occurred to him that the child was dead. All that he saw and heard seemed to confirm this terror.
"All is over," he thought, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He went to the cot in confusion, sure that he would find it empty and that the nurse had been hiding the dead baby. He drew the curtain aside, and for some time his frightened, restless eyes could not find the baby. At last he saw him. The rosy boy had tossed about till he lay across the bed with his head lower than the pillow, and was smacking his lips in his sleep and breathing evenly. Thank goodness.
Prince Andrew was as glad to find the boy like that as if he had already lost him. He bent over him and, as his sister had taught him, tried with his lips whether the child was still feverish. The soft forehead was moist. Prince Andrew touched the head with his hand. Even the hair was wet, so profusely had the child perspired. He was not dead, but evidently the crisis was over, and he was convalescent. Prince Andrew longed to snatch up, to squeeze, to hold to his heart this helpless little creature, but dared not do so. He stood over him, gazing at his head and at the little arms and legs which showed under the blanket. He heard a rustle behind him, and a shadow appeared under the curtain of the cot. He did not look round, but still gazing at the infant's face, listened to his regular breathing. The dark shadow was Princess Mary, who had come up to the cot with noiseless steps, lifted the curtain, and dropped it again behind her. Prince Andrew recognized her without looking and held out his hand to her. She pressed it.
"He is perspired," said Prince Andrew.
"I was coming to tell you so."
The child moved slightly in his sleep, smiled, and rubbed his forehead against the pillow.
Prince Andrew looked at his sister. In the dim shadow of the curtain, her luminous eyes shone more brightly than usual from the tears of joy that were in them. She leaned over to her brother and kissed him, slightly catching the curtain of the cot. Each made the other a warning gesture and stood still in the dim light beneath the curtain, as if not wishing to leave that seclusion where they three were shut off from the world. Prince Andrew was the first to move away, ruffling his hair against the muslin of the curtain.
"Yes, this is the one thing left me now," he said with a sigh. Dodged a bullet there. I was sure he was going to be dead. Although Mary would be a really inconvenient person to like know, because she probably like every time you look at her looks like, oh god, they're all dead. Like she probably looks terrified every single time.
That's true.
That was actually funny, the story. You funny, Billabin.
Billabin.
You funny.
It was good. It's a mess, but it's good.
What's good?
The letter. Yeah, the letter.
I can't believe that Andrew, I mean, maybe he was just brought back to the earth by his son, but it kind of seemed like he was like chomping at the bit to go back.
Well, I think he is. I think that's what's of interest to him in the letter.
Yeah, no,
He's
clearly.
like, it's a mess, you say. I know just the man. Yeah.
I don't know if you happen to have seen my standard. He like pulls it up from his butt.
Oh. Yeah. He's going back.
You think he'll go back?
I think so.
Yeah. What about the baby?
The baby, exactly. But come on, children don't need their fathers.
Well, maybe not if they have like 17 nurses.
Yeah.
And one very foreboding aunt.
That's all you really need.
She's the opposite aunt that I am. Anytime I see my nephew, I'm...
You don't think she's like that?
Mary?
Yeah.
No, I think Mary's
She's like, I'm sorry. Okay. We're gonna end there.
yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.